Realtree's Midwest Whitetail is brought to you by Cuddyback, America's Best Bowstrings, Drake Non-Typical, Easton Arrows, Frigid Forage, Fuse, Grizzly Coolers, Hoyt, and Realtree.
Hey guys, welcome back. Today we're going to frost seed some clover. We've got some fertilizer stuff to talk about, and we're also going to look at a couple of different fields, maybe changing up what we're going to plant there. So today is all about food plots. Let's hop on the quad and go get started. All right, our first spot, we've got a little quarter-acre microplot back here. We're going to overseed it with trophy clover. I'm going to go just a little, it recommends 8 to 10 pounds per acre. I'm going to go just a little heavier than that because we're frost seeding it, so usually add about 25% to that. Unless I'm overseeding the stand that we already have, then I'll back it down a little bit. So for this quarter acre, we're talking 12 pounds per acre, so we do about, 3 would be about right, probably. All right, let's go give her a whirl. See if I can operate this fancy machinery here. So here's our little microplot I was telling you about. We've got food sources kind of all around this, and this is just trying to catch them staging up before they head out to the bigger fields. Was the idea of this. We got a redneck soft-sided blind set up right there. We'd set this up for Trey this fall, but we never did get to hunt him, so I think I hunted that one time. But we'll go ahead and seed this. I'll probably go over it twice. I put in how much seed I want to put down, so rather than run out and not get it covered, I'll go over light once and then go over it a second time with the rest of it. Tell you, I'm out of shape. It happens. All right, let's head to the next one. So what I've got here, this is that stand site where the two corners of timber touch. So I'm just going to try and enhance that with the pure trophy clover just right here in this corner. The trick is trying to make sure it doesn't get sprayed, because this is one of my ag fields here also. So we'll flag that. Hopefully it doesn't get sprayed, and if it does, we'll have to do something different in the fall, but we'll give it a shot. So here we've got a plot that's, I don't even know if it is a quarter acre, probably just under. And it was autumn quick plot last fall, but I think I'm going to go ahead and put trophy clover in here for now until I decide what I want to do with it. At least that'll keep it from all the weeds taking over. And I'll decide if I want to keep it that for hunting season, or maybe I'll plow that down. I mean, they make a product, clover plow down. It's designed for this, but I'm just going to go ahead with the trophy clover because I'm not sure exactly what I'm going to do with it. The one thing with these steeper hillsides in the summer, clovers might not be your best choice unless you get a lot of rainfall, because these steep side hills will tend to burn up. And white clovers, they've got shallow root systems, so they don't do well in dry soil. But other than red clover has a tap root that goes 2 to 3 feet deep, so red clover will do just fine in it. So here we go. Let's hit this bad boy. Got a little different situation here. This is established already, but there's some thin spots in it, so I'm going to overseed the thin spots, and I'll knock the seed rate back depending on what it looks like. I'll knock it back to 50%, or if it's really thin, I'll just run it full rate. But you kind of get a feel for it if you do enough of this, kind of what you're running as far as the rate goes. But it helps to put in exactly what you want to put on and run it a time or two. You kind of get a feel for it that way. But we'll see what we got. I see we've got some grass coming in right here, so we'll spray that later on in the late spring or whatever. That's a clover right there coming up. Got some gonna make it. Here's a big old signpost rub. Every year that boy gets shined up. Be cool one of these years to stick a camera on it. I'm surprised I haven't done that yet. Usually I've got them on scrapes, but every once in a while I put them on a big rub like that. It's kind of neat. See what's using it. Well, let's finish this bad boy off. Get to the next plot. One thing I wanted to tell you guys about, if you've got a good bead on a buck from previous year, the next year, I really like to keep the food sources the same. A lot of times they'll do the same thing the next fall they did the previous fall. So that picket fence buck was using this plot quite a bit, so I'm going to try and keep it the same. We'll see if he doesn't do the same thing next year. So we've got a little different situation here. I've got an established alfalfa field here that's getting a little thin here and there. According to the agronomist, you don't want to overseed alfalfa into alfalfa once it's a year old or older. For some reason it's toxic to the new seedlings. So, but you can overseed clover into it. So as this starts to diminish and the stand gets weak, then I'll just go ahead and keep overseeding clover into it, and eventually that clover will take over. So, or either that or you got to start over. Oh, I've got a good little tip for you that might help you here and there. I farm about, 1,000, 1,200 acres. But in doing that, sometimes I run into stuff that's useful for food plots. There's a couple of apps out there that really help you. There's one, Ag PhD puts these apps out, and there's one called Fertilizer Nutrient Removal. If you get on that, you can look up all these different crops and tell what the nutrients remove or the crop removes as far as nutrients. And that'll really help you on your fertilizer if you don't have time to send in a soil test or whatever. There's another one called Modes of Action, and that's got all your herbicides on it, insecticides. You can look all those up and read the label right there and see exactly what it's for and what the label recommends. So those are a couple that I use quite a bit for this kind of stuff. Now keep in mind, if you do this, your clover will outcompete your alfalfa, so eventually your clover is going to take over, but that's fine with me. So just keep that in mind. While we're back down here at the old crabs plot, I'm just going to seed this little corner right here. We'll keep that clover going forward, hopefully. So it's autumn quick plot right now. We'll hit it real quick, and then we've got one more spot. And we'll head back to the house. I'm going to show you guys some antlers. We are live. Last spot right here. I'm getting excited. This is a perfect spot for clover. It's a little bottom field. Of course, it stays pretty moist, so clover is a really good choice with the shallow root depth. We'll hit this little corner and I'll do a path going right down. I've got another tree stand right down there in that draw. We've hunted a few times last fall, but I'll do another little strip down through there, and then I've got, oh, maybe half an acre down there to do. So we'll hit all that, then we'll head back to the house. Peace out, homie. Well, we made it back in from frost eating here. One of the questions I get quite often is, how do you know it's the same buck from year to year? How do you identify them? I wanted to show you a few of the antlers and some of the characteristics I look at to follow these deer. This is the Uno buck. This is his shed from 2016. This one threw me off for a little while, because this is what he looked like 2016. He just had this abnormal growth, which they're normally not going to have that from year to year. Who knows why exactly he had it, if he was injured or what happened. But some of the things I look at is the curvature of the antler. You want to look at the coloration, the texture, the beadwork. One really important thing that I look at is where the brow tine comes off from the beam. That'll usually be consistent every year. I mean, not the exact distance because they keep getting bigger, but the general placement of it. Any curvature of the brow tine. The brow tine I look at a lot, but it took me a month or so of seeing this deer the next year. This is what he looked like the next year. And started to put all the pieces together. He was running the same area. I knew that he'd lived, and then eventually just put it together. That's the same buck. But if you look at these brow tines, that's probably the best giveaway. That's the same deer. And like I said, you start looking at the other stuff, the color, texture, and all that kind of thing. But I mean, he's a lot different from one year to the next in that scenario. A lot of times they'll be almost identical. So that's one buck there. Also, it didn't hurt that his other side was pretty similar to what he looked like in 16, so it was just another clue. It's a little bit different. He just had 4 typical on this side in 16, and then 17 he threw a G5 on. I got a couple other ones I want to show you from 2 years old on. Come over here and look at this buck. So this is a buck I call a bullseye buck. At 2 years old, this is what he looked like. And as a 3-year-old, he made a heck of a jump. And again, it took me just a little bit to figure out that was the same deer. Sometimes that'll happen from 2 to 3 or 3 to 4. They'll make a really big jump. And it takes a little bit. But look at those brow tines. Look at the curvature that those brows have. Look where it comes off from the beam. The texture again. Start putting it all together. You can see that's the same deer. You can look at the mount up here. What he did from 3 to 4. Be this side right here. That brow tine's got that same curvature to it. I mean, he really blew up into a nice deer at 4, but you see, you look at all that. He stayed very similar, especially with those brows. Those are always did give away on the brow tines. There's one other one I've got that's interesting here. This is the split G2 buck. It's this buck right here. This is the only deer that I'm fairly certain I've got his shed when he was a yearling. That brow tine is very distinct. Most of them, their yearling shed is just so small in comparison to when they get bigger, you just can't recognize them. But I'm pretty sure that's his shed as a yearling. That's what he looked like as a 2-year-old. He was just a 8-point. But notice again that brow tine where it comes off from the beam, just a straight shot up. There it was as a 3-year-old. And then I didn't find his sheds as a 4-year-old. I'd seen him one time hunting late season as a 4-year-old. This other side, he always had just 4 on that up as a 4-year-old. A great big bladed G2. And then as a 5-year-old, which is what he is right here, he ended up throwing a big old G4 on that side. He had never had it before. It was always just 4 typical points. And then he did have the same 5 on that left side, was basically identical. But there again, I mean, the brow tines, the curvature of the beam, the way it sweeps up on the end, and the color and the texture all led you to that was the same deer. And he was very unique that he would leave the farm and come back every late season. So it was unique that he would do that. One of the few I've seen do that. Was always gone until about December. When the food started getting scarce, he'd come back. So that was his demise. Ended up killing him, I think it was maybe the 1st of January. But I just wanted to show you guys that, how I kind of track them from year to year. Trail cameras are key in that, because you know they made it, so you're looking for the deer already. And then when they start showing up in the same areas, that sure helps you put it all together. But that's going to wrap it up for today. We're going to be filming a couple more days this week. We've got some TSI stuff to do. We're going to start hanging tree stands. So come back here in a day or two and we'll have another vlog up.